Hi, I'm back again. It was pointed out to me by user Usurpation Blitz that I should go into some details about my reactions from a lot of the events from A Storm of Swords. And so, yeah, there will be major spoilers. I made a list of a bunch of different things, a little tiny post-it note, that I'm going to be going over and sharing my reactions. So, just to let you know, spoilers, if you have not read this, leave now. Just run away. Especially if you're not caught up, even if you've been watching the series and you haven't read the books, like, go. There will be spoilers for that too. So, what I'll have to do, this is not the first time I've read these, so I'm kind of have to go back to when I first read these books and what my reactions were to the different events that happened. So there are some major events I'm going to go over and some more minor events that I still had a big reaction to. So I'm just going to kind of go down my list, which is kind of a long list, and I will share my thoughts and feelings and my reactions. So, the Red Wedding. That was probably the single biggest event that happened in the third season of Game of Thrones. And it was the first major event that happened in this book that was like, oh my god, why did this happen? And when I was reading it, I just was like, I couldn't believe that they were doing this. You know, I knew that Walder Frey was an asshole. Like, he would totally do something like this. And I was kind of worried, you know, you go through it and you're thinking, okay, Walder Frey seems to have kind of forgiven Robb for marrying somebody else. But you're still very on edge. You know, you feel it when you're going through the chapter going, I hope they're going to be okay, but I don't really think they will be. And they're not. Now, I never really cared for Robb or Catelyn as characters, but it's still like, oh my gosh. It's much more powerful in the series because it's so unexpected and it's just so much more brutal than in the book. It's still brutal, but a lot of the different things that they show in the series were sort of mentioned throughout several more chapters, like sewing the direwolf's head to Robb's body and Robb's head to the direwolf's body. Oh my gosh, like, I couldn't believe that they did that. But then, I don't know, I didn't have like a super strong reaction to it at first because it made sense why it happened, but it was also a big game changer. My worry was about Arya in that whole situation because she had just gotten there and she was going to be reunited with her family, but as soon as this happened, you think, Arya, run. And at the end of her chapter, she gets hit with an axe, and you're thinking, oh god, I hope she's not dead. Because you never know. You think it's the Hound who just knocks her out, but you also have the thought in the back of your mind, I really hope they didn't just kill off Arya because she's like my favorite character. You bastards. And they didn't, so, you know, that was fine. And then, so I guess that leads into about 100 pages later, there's another major event, which is the Purple Wedding. And I didn't know it was called the Purple Wedding until way later, until people were referring to it as the Purple Wedding. I just knew as the time Joffrey got dead. It was awesome. But then Tyrion got screwed over, so that sucked. So I didn't think they would kill off Joffrey. I thought he was too evil to die. Like, he would just be continuing to be evil. But I thought that maybe by marrying Marjorie, he might become a little bit less of an asshole. But no, they decided to kill him off. And that was really awesome. Like, you start reading this and he starts coughing and you're thinking, wait. And then it starts happening and you're thinking, yes, go, die, you asshole, I hate you. And then Tyrion gets blamed for it. And Sansa is taken away, so there's no witnesses on Tyrion's side of it. And his whole family hates him, so you know he's going to be screwed. And so it's kind of a bittersweet moment because most of us wanted Joffrey to die. But we didn't want Tyrion to go through all this crap. And I'll talk about it later in this video about Tyrion. Tyrion's gone through so much shit in this book, and it just keeps piling on. And this is this is probably the worst thing that could have happened to him. And so I was first really happy, and then, I don't know, a page later I was just like crushed down because Tyrion got blamed for it, and just, oh, George R. R. Martin likes to fuck with our emotions. So, yeah, so that was my reaction to the Purple Wedding, and it was much stronger than it was to the Red Wedding. I thought that the Purple Wedding was actually much more, it invoked way more emotions. I was way more invested in this happening than in the Red Wedding. So, oh my gosh, even in the show, I knew it was coming. It didn't matter, and it was still happy and sad at the same time, but they did it so well, and I really liked it. It's called Only Cat, and again, I didn't know this is what it was in reference to until somebody said, like, oh yeah, talk about Only Cat. And so this was completely unexpected. It happened at the very last page of the book. And so Peter Baelish, who's Littlefinger, has gone to the Eyrie to marry Lysa Tully or Lysa Arryn, I guess now, because they need to control the Vale. You know, they have a big army, and the Vale is really hard to break into. So if they can control the Vale, they'll have a lot more power, and also they don't have to worry about the Vale coming at them from the east and crushing them. So he's gone up there, and he's come back, as we find out, for Joffrey's wedding. And when Sansa gets taken away by Ser Dontos, he takes her to a ship, which has Littlefinger on it. And then Ser Dontos gets dead, which is not super surprising. We know Littlefinger's an asshole, but we didn't know, well, Sansa doesn't know, and so that's, you know, sort of an awakening for her. She's thinking, what did I get myself into? I'm not really sure, but I guess it's better than being in King's Landing. So they go to the Eyrie, and Lysa Arryn, or Lysa Baelish, or Lysa Tully, wherever she is now, she seems all nice and warming and welcoming of Sansa. She's like, oh, you're my niece, you know, I'm so happy you're here. And the next second, she's thinking, oh my god, are you pregnant? Like, what did you do? Blah, because she's married to Tyrion, which is another thing I'll talk about later. And Lysa's accusing her of things, and Sansa's she's really afraid of her aunt because she didn't realize her aunt was this crazy. And then, you know, Sansa assures her, like, no, we didn't do anything. And Lysa's like, oh, well, wonderful, you can marry Robert when you're old enough, because Robert's her little sickly son who's really creepy and really lame. And so, again, Sansa's she's trying to make the best out of this. And later in the book, near the end of the book, she sees that it's snowing outside, and just being kind of whimsical because she remembers the snows in Winterfell. So she goes outside and makes a little Winterfell, and then Peter Baelish comes up to her, and they're kind of just talking, and he kisses her, and she doesn't know what to think. And then she finds out that Lysa saw her and just goes crazy. She opens the moon door and is trying to shove Sansa out of it. And then Peter comes up. It's like, oh, no, don't, you know, it's fine. You know, I only ever loved one woman. And Lysa's like, oh, Only Cat. And then he shoves her out the moon door. And I'm like, what? I mean, you knew that Peter only loved Catelyn. Like, you knew it. Just, it was pretty obvious. But just that, I didn't realize he was going to kill her, which was awesome because Lysa's crazy. But it's also, you know, Peter's still evil though, and he blames it on he blames the death on the singer that was there. There was a singer who kept trying to get in Sansa's pants, and totally deserves to get blamed for this. But just didn't expect it. I mean, of course, it's the very end of the book, so obviously something major had to happen. But dude. Just I think that's how I reacted to it. It was really cool. Yeah, Lysa, you get no love from anybody. Oh, and you also learn about Lysa that she had a baby with Peter Baelish, because when they were younger, they totally boned, and I think she miscarried the baby. But that's why her father had to marry her off to Jon Arryn, who was like three or four times her age. Like, he was an old man already, because she was spoiled goods. And, you know, there's reasons why she's as crazy as she is, but it didn't matter. I didn't like her anyway. But yeah, so that was my reaction to that. The next thing on my list, and these are not really in any particular order now, because these are kind of things that just happened that I had a strong reaction to. So Tywin's death. Again, another thing that I didn't exactly expect to happen. Also involved in Tywin's death is Shae becoming Tywin's whore. Those two things I did not expect. So when Tyrion gets broken out of jail because he's been found guilty, his brother and Varys break him out of jail, but his brother, Tyrion finds out that his brother lied to him about Tysha, who was the woman he married for like 2 weeks. He thought she was just a whore, but apparently she's actually just a crofter's daughter who got turned into a whore, and that made it even worse. And so Tyrion doesn't like Jaime anymore, and he wants to go take his anger out on his dad. And so he uses some secret passages that Varys knows about, and Varys goes along with it, mostly probably because Varys knows he can't stop him. And so Tyrion climbs up to the Tower of the Hand, and the first thing he sees is Shae naked on the bed with the little chain of hands around her neck that Tyrion used to wear. And that is kind of the last straw. Tyrion, I believe, I didn't actually know this in the book until I reread it, because I had a feeling he killed her, but it was very quick. He strangles her with the necklace of hands, because she totally betrayed him. And it's more obvious in the book that she's just in it for the money. But in the show, she actually loves him, and the reason she betrays him in the show is because he is trying to be loyal to Sansa, whereas in this one, she's just in it for the money and everything, and once Tyrion gets caught, she's like, oh, I'll do whatever for money and power, and so she sleeps with Tywin, and yeah, Tyrion doesn't like that, so he kills her. And that wasn't as shocking, I guess, because that's kind of a you kind of see it coming. Tyrion was a little naive to think that Shae actually loved him for him. So then he also has a crossbow at this point. I think he gets it in Tywin's room, or somehow, I don't remember, but he has a crossbow, and he finds Tywin on the toilet, and Tywin doesn't really react. He's like, oh, you're here, what do you want? He doesn't think Tyrion would actually kill him. And Tywin starts talking about the whore, the one he married before, and then Shae, and Tyrion tells him, you say that word again, that will kill you. So Tywin says it again, and Tyrion totally puts a crossbow bolt through his, like, intestines. And it's a very bad way to die, but Tywin totally deserved it. Again, didn't expect it until it got to that point, because you could see, you know, Tywin may not know, but Tyrion's just done. He has taken way too much crap. His father will not let him be the heir to Casterly Rock. He's only recognizing him because I can't prove that you're not mine. And he has no reason left to want to try to keep his dad alive or to try to please his father, because he never will. And because his father totally could have stopped this trial or come to his defense, but no, he kept ruling against Tyrion and listening to all the slanderous dispositions from different people. And yeah, Tywin got dead, which was awesome. Oh, Tywin was such a butt face. Such a butt face. But yeah, so that was my reaction to Tywin's death. Again, pretty awesome. Of course, now Tyrion has to go on the run. Of course, he'd have to go on the run anyway, but at least he went on the run for something better than for a death he actually caused, rather than, you know, Joffrey. So the next one, Tyrion's marriage to Sansa Stark. That was, I didn't expect, you know, again, a lot of these are I didn't expect them, because Sansa's so young. I think she's like 12 or 13 in the book at this point. I think, no, she's not even, she's like 12, I think. And Tyrion's like twice her age. And, you know, Sansa kind of deserves getting some humility. She needs this, because she was terrible in the first book, and her being blinded by her love of Joffrey caused a lot of the problems that happened. And now she gets to marry Tyrion. But poor Tyrion, because, you know, he's like, but she's a little girl. I don't want to marry her, because she's not going to want to marry me. And he doesn't, because he doesn't want to be married to somebody who doesn't want to be married to him. And there's just another instance of Tyrion getting crapped on in this book. And I felt bad for him. And I kind of felt bad for Sansa, but not really. I'm liking Sansa more as the books go on, mostly because she's had to grow as a character. But poor Tyrion. And of course, because, you know, he's noble, he won't sleep with Sansa unless she says it's okay. And she's like, well, I don't think I'll ever want to sleep with you. Yeah. So that poor Tyrion. I think that was more my reaction. Poor Tyrion, rather than, oh my god, he has to marry Sansa. It was kind of like, oh my god, for two seconds, and then it was more, oh, poor Tyrion. Oh. So next thing is Jon Snow's election as commander of the Night's Watch. That was quite unexpected, because Jon, I mean, you can see his leadership capabilities once you reread it, especially. You know, it makes a lot more sense. But as you go on, you're just thinking, oh, it's just Jon. You know, why would he never wants to be elected as commander of the Night's Watch. And his name isn't even put in until they realize that Janos Slynt, the major asshole from King's Landing, could very well become the next commander of the Night's Watch, and he would be terrible. They know he would be terrible, but he's winning. He hasn't won yet, because you have to win by like 2/3 majority or something, and hasn't gotten enough votes yet. And Stannis, he's at the wall. I'll talk about that in a little bit. He's saying, I want you guys to choose commander now. Do not leave until you've chosen somebody. So it's now Sam, he decides, I am going to rig this election, kind of, sort of, by telling, that's kind of fudging the truth a little bit, and all of the ravens say Snow, just because Sam kind of taught them to say that, and Jon never really liked it. But throughout all the coincidences, they decide that Jon should be the new commander of the Night's Watch. And Jon is kind of flabbergasted. And so are the readers at first, because you're thinking, yay? Question mark? Because he's very young. He's only 16 or 17 at this point. He's not very old. He's a good leader. He's going to be a better leader than Janos Slynt. But, oh my gosh. It's really cool stuff happens with him later in like the 5th book as the commander of the Night's Watch. So I think it's good for character development too, for him realizing that, you know, you are a leader and you need to do stuff. Yeah. Alright, so leading into Stannis at the wall. It was kind of out of nowhere that he came up there. You can see it when Davos reads him the letter about the Night's Watch, but you don't realize that's what he's doing until after the fact, because Davos just pulls out a letter and is like reading it to Stannis. And then Stannis shows up at the wall and realizes that, you know, Stannis' motivations are to get more people and more money, and in order to be able to win this war. So he has his own selfish motivations, but the Night's Watch is saved from the wildlings, and that's all kind of cool. But you think, what is something's major is gonna change because a king is at the wall for the first time in many, many years. And Melisandre's up there, who can also cause some interesting problems, possibly. So that was a little bit interesting, maybe? I don't know. Interesting stuff happens in the 5th book, but I'm not going to talk about that yet until I get to the 5th book. And then these ones are a little bit way even more minor than the past few I've been talking about. Beric Dondarrion. You knew about him and you kept hearing about the different ways he's been dying, and apparently all of them are true because he cannot die. Yeah. And they end with that chapter going, oh, Beric Dondarrion came out and he's alive after the Hound cut him in half almost. So that was cool. And that led to some interesting possibilities with the Lord of the Light possibly being able to bring people back from the dead. That was cool. Yeah. So that has major implications for the next topic. But yeah, it was sort of more of like a shock moment, and then they explain it, and you're more interested in what are the implications with Melisandre can do the same thing. And it was kind of cool in the show because they actually had Melisandre go to the Brotherhood Without Banners and was talking to Thoros of Myr, saying, "How did you do this?" He's like, oh, I didn't, the Lord of Light did this. I didn't do anything. And Melisandre's kind of confused. So it could be interesting. So Lady Stoneheart, that was an interesting reveal. I wasn't super shocked by it. Mostly because I didn't really like Catelyn anyway. So I wasn't thinking, yes, she's back, or oh no, major implications. I just thought, okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting plot point. It gets a little bit more interesting later. But for now, I was thinking, oh crap, you have kind of an almost undead Catelyn Stark who is out for revenge. She's gonna kill all the Freys and everybody else and lots of people who may have done her family wrong. So yeah, that was my reaction to Lady Stoneheart. So Jaime getting his hand cut off. I love Jaime in this book. And again, you think Jaime's kind of untouchable, especially by people who know who he is, because you would think that they would realize that Tywin Lannister would want his son back in one piece. And yeah, Vargo Hoat doesn't really care. Vargo Hoat, who used to work for his father, actually, and then decided to work for Roose Bolton, who was sworn to the Starks, decided, I'm gonna cut your hand off because that's what I like to do. And yeah, Roose Bolton didn't really approve of that, and it just kind of happened. And of course, Tywin wasn't happy about that either. And so Jaime's kind of going along trying to pretend, oh yeah, I can fight just as well as I could. No, I can't. So poor Jaime, because you actually really start to like him in this book because he finally gets a point of view chapters, and you learn more about him, and you realize he's not as dishonorable as you think. He's a good guy, and I felt so bad when he got his hand cut off. Of course, another good. It was a good move as far as character development's concerned, because what is he if he's not a fighter? What can he do if he's not fighting? So that was rather a rather good little thing George R. R. Martin put in there. Hurt the characters a lot. Get character development. That's seems to be the way he gets character development. Let's hurt them or put them in terrible situations and see what they do with it. Yay. So last couple I have, Jorah Mormont, near the end of this book, is revealed to have been passing along information to the Crown in the Seven Kingdoms, and Dany's not happy with that, so he kind of gets the boot And yeah, because she was gonna try to forgive him for it, but she realized that she couldn't because he misused her trust. I mean, she found out that he had been sending things all the way up until Karth, which she could kind of understand if, like, maybe while they were still at the Khalasar, with Jorah's Khalasar, but I mean, he's been doing it for, very up until very recently, and she's not happy about that. And I was kind of sad because I didn't mind Jorah as a character, and I felt really bad that, he had feelings for her and she didn't return them, and that he got the shaft. But then again, he kind of deserved it. I like him. I like him a lot more in the show. Well, for one thing, he's a lot cuter. And also, he's a lot more interesting in the show. And you can see more of the emotions going on. And so it's going to be probably a more emotional scene or set of scenes in the show, when they get to that point. I'm assuming they're going to get to that point. Because we've liked this character, and he's been in it actually longer in the show than he normally would have been in the book, because before Meereen, as it got to Meereen, he got kicked out and exiled and banished, like, you can go away, hate you. And Jorah kind of screws things up later. I will talk about that when I get to the 5th book. And then the last thing I want to talk about, mostly because I felt really dumb, Arstan, who is with Daenerys. He saves her at the end of the 2nd book, and he is supposedly squiring for Strong Belwas, who's this big giant eunuch guy who's a really good fighter. And Arstan's just this old man with a really long white beard, and they call him Whitebeard, but his name's Arstan, and he's from the Seven Kingdoms, and I did not know who this guy was. I was just like, oh, whatever, it'll be revealed later, maybe he'll be some cool guy. And it turns out he's Barristan Selmy. I was like, wait a second, why did I not see that? Because when you reread the book, it's super obvious, especially Arstan, like, Barristan, yeah. I feel really dumb. Yeah. He's cool though. I think they brought him in and they revealed him way earlier in the show. Mostly because it's kind of hard to disguise that this actor is the same guy. But they kind of had to bring him in to be her, like, advisor from the Seven Kingdoms, because now Jorah's got the boot. I like Barristan Selmy, because he's very honorable to a fault almost. But I don't know. I think Dany doesn't listen to us as much as she should. But yeah, so those are my reactions to all the major and minor events in this book. I'd love to talk about Arya, but most of her major stuff doesn't actually happen until the 4th book. So I'll get to that, because I love Arya's character arc in the 4th book. But that takes a long time to develop, because they have all of these characters in the 4th book that I could care less about. I have to read them, and I've read like a chapter in it because I hate that book. The 5th book is fine. The 5th book actually gets a lot more into more of the interesting characters. All the characters you care about are in the 5th book, except for Arya. Well, Arya's in the 5th book too, but she's the only one that I really care about in this book. And it takes forever to get to her. I love what they did with her and the Hound in the show. Kind of made them sort of a funny duo. But yeah, so I guess those are my reactions. They probably weren't as awesome as other reviews have been, especially if they had just read the book and they just reacted to it. It's unfortunate. I read these several years ago, so my reactions are not fresh. I have to remember back to them. But I hope this was kind of interesting, and yeah. So I will talk to you guys later. I'll probably try to read another book in between Feast for Crows, that review, because I'm not going to read that one for a long time. So I'll probably read. I've got a bunch of like little books that I bought for my Nook that I'll probably read, and I've got tons of little romance novels and things that I could just read in the meantime. So yeah, I will see you guys later. Bye.